Denise. Thank you for being in the interview with me this morning.
Sure.
Can you tell us about who you are a little bit?
Yeah. So I guess we're interested in my journey with yoga more than anything. And while I've been interested in everything related to yoga since I was a teenager, when I went to university out in Newfoundland, I was introduced to meditation and Sri Chamoy, meditation for world peace. And as part of, I think it was one of my psychology professors that really got me interested in reading more about meditation. And I also did a course in parapsychology with Dr. Anthony Flew and started to understand some of the parapsychical things that were in the world. And I was interested in everything at 17. And my path led me eventually to yoga. And I did my first yoga teacher training in 1993 after I had my first son, and with Susie Diaz in Toronto, and that probably finished in 94. And once I did that, it's like everything that I'd been studying in psychology and philosophy and communications and my interest and hobbies in fitness and aerobics and personal training all kind of came together on the yoga mat. And so that's what led me. And I'm the kind of person that likes to know everything about a thing. I don't like to just practice a thing without understanding it. So I started to read deeply and take intensives with a lot of different teachers in different styles of yoga. And after about 10 years, I realized that what kept me coming back to my mat was the Ashtanga style of yoga. And what kept bringing people to my classes was really the Kripalu style of yoga. So I started to dig deeper wells in both of those styles. And what is in our studio today is Samasa yoga, and it's really a great blend of all the different types of yoga I've studied and somatics, the embodiment movement, and just bringing together the best of psychology, movement, and practices that help us to feel better, heal what can be healed, tolerate what can't be healed, and generally lead an examined life.
So, Denise was my yoga teacher, and then my teacher for the yoga teacher training. I didn't know that the meditation was before yoga, for your yoga journey.
Many years, yeah.
Yeah. So, I did my yoga teacher training in Atra Studio in Cambridge, and then, honestly, I never had a better yoga experiences than under her teaching. So I still think and like firmly believes that you're the best yoga teachers that I ever had, and then I probably will have. Like the experiences under your teaching is just a different level to me.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm always grateful that whenever I'm surrendering to your voice. So, can you tell us about the Yoga Nidra?
I think that when I first did my training, I kind of understood Yoga Nidra to be the relaxation at the end of a yoga class. And Susie introduced us to a lot of different methodologies to take us into that state at the end of a practice in Shavasana. And they all came out of I think many of them came out of the Kripalu system, which I would learn later when I spent a lot of time at Kripalu and with different Kripalu teachers. I also discovered along the way a little book by Swami Satchitananda out of the Shivananda school of yoga. And it was a book that contained research and different longer Yoga Nidra, so that Yoga Nidra was like a standalone practice. And when I first did my training, I didn't realize that that was the case. And so it was probably about maybe 15 or 16 years ago that I discovered the Shivananda type of Yoga Nidra, and then discovered that there was a whole world of Yoga Nidra that I had known nothing about. So it was very exciting. And Amrit Desai was one of the teachers that brought Kripalu Yoga to the West. He has a very intense full week training on Yoga Nidra. Richard Miller has an intense training on Yoga Nidra they call iRest. And I started to read what these different teachers had written about Yoga Nidra and read some of the research. And then one day I was leading a Yoga Nidra in the studio, sitting in that gold chair. You remember the gold chair, right? And I was sitting there and I had my little book and I was reading it. And the reason I was reading it and using the book for it was I was trying to establish a classic practice so people could come and have the same practice from this tradition, and just for me to see what the results in the studio would be of people doing that practice. And while everyone was getting comfortable and relaxed, I was kind of thumbing through the book again. And at the back of the book, I just glanced at something that said that Yoga Nidra takes us into a state of consciousness that's very similar to REM sleep. And when I read that, it twigged something else that I had read recently about Parkinson's, and how one of the ways that they diagnose Parkinson's is that a person doesn't get into REM sleep. And this just set off it was like setting off a light bulb in my brain. And I went, what if we could get people who have Parkinson's to practice Yoga Nidra regularly? Would that change their brain chemistry in some way? So I started doing research, and I have a friend at Cambridge Memorial who has access to medical library. So she did a search for me and came back with a file folder full of all kinds of juicy things to read about. I went through Richard Miller on his website, iRest. He has a lot of research on one of the tabs there. So I went through all the articles and suggested reading there. And I started to study about Parkinson's, and I did that through the Parkinson's Foundation website, and looking at what J. Michael Fox has done and what a lot of the research has done. And I realized there's actually a movements disorders clinic at Wilfrid Laurier. So I started trying to talk to professors who were researching Parkinson's so I would understand it better. And after many conversations, and I was in the Melville Cafe, and I'd probably been doing this research for about 2 or 3 weeks then, and I was getting a napkin at the stand where I've got my coffee in my hand. I was going to and I reached to get a napkin, and the man that was beside me reached across to get a stir stick or something. And I pulled back and he pulled back. And then we both went forward at the same time. And then we both went back, and I said, well, we're going to do the hokey pokey. You want to dance? And he stammered, I have to ask my wife. And I looked at him and I said, you know how straightforward I am, Yumi. I just looked at him and I said, do you have Parkinson's? Like, I was excited that he had Parkinson's. Just not a very nice thing. If you're the person with Parkinson's, probably a strange lady.
At least you did it in a charming way.
Yeah, it was just, and he said, I do. And I said, well, would it be okay if I talk to you for a few minutes? I'm a yoga teacher, and I'm really interested in Parkinson's right this minute. He said, let's ask my wife. If it's okay with her, it's okay with me. And so we walked over, and he had what I then began to understand as dyskinesia, which means that he was taking levodopa, and it gives them it stops the tremors so that they can walk and move, but it gives them kind of this kind of disconnected kind of walking and strange arm movement. And we sat down and talked. I told them what I was interested in, and they both agreed to come and do Yoga Nidra with me and see what happened. So we did Yoga Nidra with them, and it was phenomenal, Yumi. I had no idea what to expect, because I could not find any research that connected these two things. But his name was Kurt, and as soon as Kurt got on the floor and I started the Yoga Nidra pattern, his whole body went still. The movements, the tight muscles, the drawing in of the muscles, and the all of the typical Parkinson's symptoms disappeared. So for 40 minutes on the floor, I often watched people's rapid eye movement, and you could see when it slowed down. You could see it was darting all over at the beginning, and then his eyes were closed, but you can see the eye movement still. And then it started to do the just easy back and forth. I'm like, he's in a state of Yoga Nidra. And then about 40 minutes in, maybe 42 minutes in, I started a pattern that is part of the very end of the practice. Mm-hmm. And he had no way of knowing it's the end of the practice. But you could watch him go from the state of consciousness he was in back into a conscious state. And you could watch the tension in the muscles come back. You could watch the light tremor come back. You could watch the eyes started to flutter. The jaw was uncomfortable. You could see the symptoms of Parkinson's coming back as he went into a different state of consciousness. So the first session led me to believe that Parkinson's doesn't exist in every part of the brain. It only exists in one particular part of the brain, and that it's possible that if we could understand how to get into a different state of consciousness, even in our waking hours, that we might be able to control. So this set me off on doing more research, and I've since been researching Yoga Nidra and Parkinson's and how it affects other people and other musculoskeletal disorders ever since. We've yet to get funded to do a proper, it'd be great to do a study with 2 or 3 or 500 people and see exactly. But I ended up going to Kripalu, and I assisted in the Kripalu retreat for people with Parkinson's and their caregivers. And we made a couple of I think, pretty amazing discoveries and changes in the program based on my research, which was they were doing Yoga Nidra with this group at 7 o'clock at night. And the first day, and we did this, I'm looking at the schedule going, I wonder how that's going to affect people with Parkinson's doing yoga. And they've been running this program for several years, right? Mm-hmm. And I got to know the participants. And that first night, I'm up doing schoolwork or whatever it was. I was working on something, because when you go to assist, you're still got your regular life to take care of, right? And I was up at like 11 or 12 o'clock at night getting a tea in the dining hall, and here was one of the participants from the Parkinson's, and I said, not able to sleep? He said, no, that's stupid Yoga Nidra. They do that at 7 o'clock, and we've had a good night's sleep, then we're awake for the rest of the night. And I said, I thought so. I said, I really think that Yoga Nidra should be done between 2 and 4 p.m. based on what we know about the gunas, the doshas, and understanding. It's the Vata time of day. If you do this at 7 o'clock, right, you're going to interfere with someone who has Parkinson's. They are going to end up awake until probably 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning before they can sleep again. So we changed Yoga Nidra to 2 p.m. in the schedule, and it stayed at 2 p.m. after that observation. And the participants found it actually helped them to sleep better.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So
I remember we talked about that and how passionate you were in 2013 about the Yoga Nidra and Parkinson's disease. I'm so glad that your research is been going and your passion is still continuing. Yeah, that's just amazing. So Denise was generously read the Yoga Nidra script that I wrote. So I write to everybody to check that out. And then lastly, maybe I'd like you to talk about how Atra Studio is offering yoga practice services. Now you're in online, yeah?
Yeah, we're online. We closed March 13th for COVID. And when we closed, we thought it was going to be a couple of weeks. So we pivoted.
Everybody thought that it was. Yeah, I thought so too.
A couple of weeks, and here we are a year later, right? Yeah. So when we first closed, we jumped online and did all kinds of different things online. And we eventually have evolved it into an online membership platform where we've got live classes and on-demand classes. And so the other thing we did right away was offer free access to all frontline health care workers.
Oh, that's just great.
We figured that that's our way of giving back to the community at the moment. We feel really supported by a handful of people in the community, and appreciating that support and appreciating the fact that we get to do yoga. And the other stat, Yumi, I heard this week is that at this moment in time, it is the worst that mental health has been in Canada.
Yes. I noticed that too with my practice, yeah.
Right. in all of history, we've never had this type of mental health crisis going on. And so it's the thing that we're doing is offering free yoga. And there's a handful of people that I've been helping with private yoga because they're identifying as needing more support than they can get in just a regular yoga class. So we're doing private yoga, corporate yoga. We've done presentations for schools, helping teachers to learn how to use yoga tools to help in the classroom, to help with the whole burnout from being on the computer and online and all that sort of thing. And it's been really well received. So I feel like I've kind of climbed to base camp of Mount Everest with 72 Sherpas is kind of what I feel like in terms of the technology I've had to learn.
I know you and technology.
It's not my favorite, right?
No.
I've had a lot of people help me, and I can use Zoom and Acuity and Squarespace. I've got all these things going on, and I actually understand them. So that's exciting. And,
great.
Yeah,
so is Yoga Nidra help for the people with who's being challenged with a mental illness?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And again, I still stick by. There's 3 times that it's ideal. Either if you can do it between 2 and 4 in the afternoon is a really perfect time for long-term effects, right? If you can't do it then, do it right before bed as a way to get to sleep. And if you can't do it at 2 and you can't do it right before bed, when you first wake up in the morning, if you are waking up because you have insomnia, do Yoga Nidra to get back to sleep or do Yoga Nidra to relax deeply. The theory is, it hasn't been proved in research yet, but the theory is 20 to 40 minutes of Yoga Nidra has a similar effect on the brain and the body and the nervous system as 4 hours of deep sleep.
Wow.
So we don't know that. Again, it's a empirical understanding. It's an observed understanding. It's not research science-based understanding, but it's been my experience that
it's my experience too. I agree with you. Yeah, the feeling after Yoga Nidra is quite refreshing. Yeah.
Yes, it's like we've had a deep sleep. Right?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Denise, for taking time today. And then I'm gonna get your information later, so people have access to your online yoga class. And then I will make sure that the frontline workers will know that they have free access to your service as well.
Any of your clients or listeners are welcome to join us to try a class for free anytime. And right now we have a 14-day free trial going on. So
that's great.
If you put my contact information there, I'll send them the information. And no commitment. You can just get a free trial.
Will do. Thank you very much, Denise.